Good evening, and welcome to Virginia Rep's Bedtime Stories. Bedtime stories. They are magical, aren't they? So I'm going to open this book. And if you're ready, and I know I'm ready, let's see what we find.
The Swineherd. There was once a poor prince who had a kingdom. His kingdom was very small, but still quite large enough to marry upon, and he wished to marry. It was certainly rather cool of him to say to the emperor's daughter, "Will you have me?" But so he did, for his name was renowned far and wide, and there were 100 princesses who would have answered, "Yes, and thank you kindly." We shall see what this princess said. Listen. It happened that where the prince's father lay buried, there grew a rose tree, a most beautiful rose tree, which blossomed only once in every 5 years, and even then bore only one flower. But what a rose! It smelled so sweet that all cares and sorrows were forgotten by him who had inhaled its fragrance. And furthermore, the prince had a nightingale who could sing in such a manner that it seemed as though all sweet melodies dwelt in her little throat. So the princess was to have the rose and the nightingale, and they were accordingly put into large silver caskets and sent to her. The emperor had them brought into a large hall, where the princess was playing at visiting with the ladies of the court. And when she saw the caskets with the presents, she clapped her hands for joy. "Ah, if it were a little pussycat," said she, as the casket with its beautiful rose came to view. All the court ladies exclaimed how pretty it was. "It is more than pretty," said the emperor. "It is charming." But the princess touched it and was almost ready to cry. "Fie, papa," she said. "It is not made at all. It is natural." "Let us see what is in the other casket before we get into a bad humor," the emperor said, and the nightingale came forth and sang so delightfully that at first no one could say anything ill-humored of her. "Superbe! Charmante!" said the ladies of the court, for they all used to chatter French to each other, each one worse than the next. An old knight said, "How much the bird reminds me of the musical box that belonged to our blessed empress. Oh, yes, these are the same tones, the same execution." "Yes, yes," said the emperor, and he wept like a child at the remembrance. "I will still hope that it is not a real bird," said the princess. Those who brought it emphasized that it was a real bird. "Well then, let the bird fly," said the princess, and she positively refused to see the prince. However, he was not to be discouraged. He daubed his face over with dirt, pulled his cap over his ears, and knocked at the door. He said, "Good day to my lord the emperor. Can I have employment at the palace?" The emperor replied, "Why, yes. I want someone to take care of the pigs, for we have a great many of them." So the prince was appointed imperial swineherd. He had a dirty little room close by the pigsty, and there he sat the whole day and worked. By the evening he had made a pretty little kitchen pot. Little bells were hung all round it, and when the pot was boiling, these bells tinkled in the most charming manner, and played the old melody, "Ah, dear Augustine, all is gone, gone, gone." But what was still more curious, whoever held his finger in the smoke of the kitchen pot immediately smelt all the dishes that were cooking on every hearth in the city. And this, you see, was something quite different from the rose. Now the princess happened to walk that way, and when she heard the tune, she stood quite still and seemed pleased, for she could play Dear Augustine. It was the only piece she knew, and she played it with one finger. "Why, there is my piece," said the princess. "That swineherd must certainly have been well educated. Go in and ask him the price of the instrument." So one of the court ladies ran in. She put on her wooden slippers first, and asked the swineherd what he would take for the kitchen pot. "I will have 10 kisses from the princess," he cried. The lady laughed incredulously. "I cannot sell it for less," said the swineherd. "He is an impudent little fellow," said the princess, and she walked on. But when she had gone a little way, the bells tinkled so prettily. "Ah, dear Augustine, all is gone, gone, gone." "Stay," said the princess. "Ask him if he will have 10 kisses from the ladies of my court." "No, thank you. 10 kisses from the princess, or I keep a kitchen pot myself." "Well, that must not be either," said the princess. But do you all stand before me, so that no one may see us." And the court ladies placed themselves in front of her and spread out their dresses. The swineherd got 10 kisses, and the princess the kitchen pot. The pot was boiling the whole evening and the whole of the following day. They knew perfectly well what was cooking at every fire throughout the city, from the chamberlains to the cobblers. The court ladies danced and clapped their hands, for they know who has soup and who has pancakes for dinner today, who has cutlets and who has eggs, and they found it so interesting. "Yes, but keep my secret, for I am an emperor's daughter." The swineherd, that is to say the prince, for no one knew that he was other than an ill-favored swineherd, let not a day pass without working at something. He at last constructed a rattle, which, when it was swung round, played all the waltzes and jigs tunes which have ever been heard since the creation of the world. "Ah, that is superb," said the princess when she passed by. "I have never heard prettier compositions. Go in and ask him the price of the instrument. But mind, he shall have no more kisses." But the lady who had been to ask said that he would have 100 kisses from the princess. "I think he is not in his right senses," said the princess, and walked on. But when she had gone a little way, she stopped again. "One must encourage art," said she. "I am the emperor's daughter. Tell him he shall, as yesterday, have 10 kisses from me, and may take the rest from the ladies of the court." The ladies didn't seem to like that too much. "What are you muttering?" asked the princess. "If I can kiss him, surely you can. Remember that you owe everything to me." So the ladies were obliged to go to him again. He said, 100 kisses from the princess, or else let everyone keep his own." "Stand round," said she, and all the ladies stood round her whilst the kissing was going on. "What can be the reason for such a crowd close by the pigsty?" said the emperor, who happened just then to step out on the balcony. He rubbed his eyes and put on his spectacles. "They are the ladies of the court. I must go down and see what they are about." As soon as he had gotten to the courtyard, he moved very softly, and the ladies were so much engrossed with counting the kisses, that all might go on fairly, that they did not perceive the emperor. He rose on his tiptoes. "What is all this?" he said, when he saw what was going on, and he boxed the princess's ears with his slipper, just as the swineherd was taking the 86th kiss. "March out!" said the emperor, for he was very angry, and both princess and swineherd were thrust out of the city. The princess now stood and wept. The swineherd scolded, and the rain poured down. "Alas, unhappy creature that I am! If I had been married the handsome young prince, ah, how unfortunate I am!" And the swineherd went behind a tree, washed the dirt from his face, threw off his dirty clothes, and stepped forth in his princely robes. He looked so noble that the princess could not help bowing before him. He said, "I am come to despise you. Thou wouldst not have an honorable prince. Thou couldst not prize the rose and the nightingale, but thou wast ready to kiss the swineherd for the sake of a trumpery plaything. Thou art rightly served. He then went back to his own kingdom and shut the door of his palace in her face. Now she might well sing, "Ah, dear Augustine, all is gone, gone, gone." The end.
Well, wasn't that a great story? You know, fairy tales truly are magical. So why don't you join me again next week when we open this book again? You never know what we might find. Until then,